To look for laps, we're going to have to actually go ahead and record some. So let's go on the racetrack. Okay guys, so now we've made it over to MoTec. So what do we have to do? So we're going to go to options and you go to controls, and here you'll see a button for toggle telemetry logging. Usually it'll say Alt L, I think. I don't really like to press two keys or whatever, so I changed it to K. So in any case, mine is K. Toggle telemetry logging. Use the default or change it to something that you like. What are we looking for? So I'm going to go ahead and press K, and boom, you see right here on the corner of the screen, I hope you can see it, I get a little thing that says telemetry, and it has a little logo like it's broadcasting some radio signals. That's the telemetry. That means that it's armed. Now we can go on the racetrack and it stays armed for the entire session. Every time that you start a new session though, you will have to rearm. Be sure that you are looking for that. I'm going to go ahead and hit test, and now you see in the cockpit, and you can see to the left here, telemetry, it's logged on. You can see that the telemetry is armed, so that means that we can go out and go about our business and, you know, do a couple laps, and it's going to record everything. So I'm driving the Porsche GT3 Cup car around here, Sebring, very bumpy track, and when you go out on cold tires, it's easy to lock up the tires. So we're going to go ahead and do a warm-up lap. In any case, the telemetry is recording. It's recording everything I'm doing, the braking, the accelerating, wheel speeds, and more importantly, we can notice what kind of mistakes we're going to be making when we're out there and looking at the data. And it serves to obviously look at your driving technique, and then secondly, evaluate the setup. But I cannot stress how important driving technique is. Really, I wonder if we sent out a survey, how many drivers are perfectly content with their driving, and I think more than probably would answer that yes, like their driving technique is on point and there's pretty much nothing that you can do to improve it, which is just total baloney. So I think a lot of people are going to be excited about these MoTec workbooks and trying to use them for setups. But really, we don't need to be looking at setups, and I got to slow down. We don't need to be looking at setups. We need to be looking at driving first and foremost. After that, then you look at your setup. And you can use it to validate and everything, but you can effectively build a setup without it, sort of. You can build a decent setup without it. You can definitely download a decent setup, and then after that, just fine-tune. So the need for using telemetry is not coming from, you know, the setup. It's really coming from the driving. You need to look at your driving. Doesn't matter who you are, because obviously the pros use it too. And it's not because they're doing setup work. It's because no matter what and who you are, you need to look at your driving to see if there's any way of improving. Even if you know how to drive, there's always one corner that maybe you're actually giving up a little bit of time. Maybe you are making a mistake. Maybe you're not getting the most out of the race car. Braking too soon, braking too late, getting on the throttle too late. If you have a teammate, that's obviously very useful. Shifting too late. All sorts of driving mistakes can be quickly recognized on the telemetry, and that's the true power of it. Okay guys, so I'm going to continue doing a couple more laps, but I will look for you and see you in a minute over on MoTec. Okay guys, so now we're back from the racetrack. We have recorded our data. Now I'm going to go ahead and run the Mu exporter. And in this case, it says that it's already running. That's good. Sometimes it's not, but that means that it was. In any case, it will do its thing. That's pretty much it. You set it, you tell it, if it's not on, you turn it on, and it will go ahead and record the data, transform it, and save it to a file. And now we're going to go look for that. So I'm going to go over to the open log file and notice where we are. So right now we are looking in MoTec, log data, samples, circuit. The mu right now for me is set to export to a different location. So for me, I am going to look here on iRacing. There's an iRacing folder and iRacing telemetry. Okay, so there are my laps and I have a lot of them, and I can just go ahead and select the first one and press open, and eureka, we have our data and it's showing up. Very nice. Again, this is just the default workbook and how it comes. Pretty neat. Now, once you start looking around, you might start getting excited, and then you start looking a little bit more closely and then start seeing that there's a couple problems. First, I notice immediately, look at these, the units are all crazy. It's all over the place. Some of these things have way too many digits after the decimal place. Here, we have a channel that's black, steering angle, and it says not available. See the same thing here. We see oversteer, unavailable. Starting to get depressing. Brake pressure, not available. Starting to get sad. Okay, well, these things seem to work. Okay. There's a lot of workbooks. So the space that we're looking at right now, this is an entire workbook. These are called worksheets, I suppose. And again, we're seeing a lot of broken stuff. Fuel injector duty, lambdas, that's going to be broken. And it's just not looking so good. Look at this, a lot of broken stuff. I don't like it. Brakes, nothing works. So there's two ways to go about this. Either, well, at least this is working nicely. Suspension velocities, suspension histogram, not working. Tires, are working. Very nice. Frictions. Well, so we have the fundamentals now. At least you have MoTec running. You've loaded up a lap. Now comes to the gritty, nitty work. Can you leave it like this? No, you can't. It's pretty useless like this. That is the blunt truth. It's nice, but it's far from optimal. I mean, this is even worse than the equivalent of, I would say, go out there and race in a top field race with the baseline setup. I mean, sure you can do it, but I mean, it's not the best thing that you can do for yourself. So we're going to have to learn and play around with this stuff. So first of all, I'm going to teach you how to at least maneuver around this program a little bit right now before we take off. I want to go ahead and show you what happens if we right click. So layout editor. If I right click in this space on this bar, I can go to layout editor, and this is what manages the entire workbook. So you'll see that the first workbook is called samples, and then you have all the worksheets below it, driver, all the worksheets below it, and so on. This is what we saw when we're clicking through this scroll down page, and then these tabs. So you can add workbooks, remove them, add worksheets, remove them, and then redefine the order, import and export. All these little details are here. Then within a workbook, you can work as well. So first of all, let's see if we can fix some of these things. Let's go to the driver one. I notice, okay, steering angle. That's broken. That's what we call it when you don't see anything. It says not available. How can we fix it? Well, let's go ahead and edit this. This is called a time distance graph. and I can grab it and manipulate it. This is what you're looking at. This is one thing. So I'm going to right click on it and say properties. And you'll notice that in the properties, the top shows engine RPM, and okay, sure enough, we have engine RPM to the right, and it's in group 1. And then in group 2, we see corrected speed, throttle position. In group 5, we see steered angle. Group 4, G-force, and gear. This is broken, that's why it's black, meaning that it can't find, basically the program is looking for a channel called steered angle. If it says not available, it means it can't find it, which means that there is no channel called steered angle. And it's kind of like a password, in coding, it has to look for that exact name. It's not present, so we have to change it. So let's go ahead and remove that and add channel. The add channels right here, and these are all the channels that are available. And there's a lot of them, so it's kind of hard to find, but you always have to take advantage of the search function, which works very well on MoTec. And I just type in a couple of characters and boom, it gets me to where I want to go. So these are all the channels that are being exported that have the word or the letter ST in it. And we see steering wheel angle, steering wheel torque, steering wheel angle again, steering wheel angle max, percent, damper, a lot of them. This is the one that we're looking for, steering wheel angle. You see the wording of it is different than what it was looking for, and now it's fixed. So now we have our steered angle back. Now I may look at it and say, I'm not really happy with this. There's details that sometimes you want to fix, and you have to think about this. So I'm gonna go ahead and click in steered angle here. Another thing that I could do is just go to properties, and then I could go here and go to edit. So there's two ways to get to it. I can either click on any one of these and edit the channel, which is the channel properties, or I can go to just the name right here and right click on that, and then it gives me various options. I can hide channel, remove channel, filter, apply filters, scale offset. Usually you're not going to have to use these. That's only for real life problems, but not simulated problems. Filter you can use, but what we're looking for is channel properties. So here, there's a couple things I don't like. The units, it's in radians. Typically we don't associate, we don't have too much reference for radians. We don't use them in everyday life, so it's kind of hard to tell what is, 0.2 radians. We want to be in degrees. So the easy way to change it is just boom, right there. It'll do the conversion for you. So now we've switched the units to degrees. The other thing is the precision. It's silly to take note of a angle with 8 decimal places behind it. That level of accuracy is not realistic at all. It doesn't mean anything, and therefore it just looks ugly and kind of stupid to display it. So we're going to go ahead and reduce that to 1 decimal place. And then finally the color. I like to have my steered angle blue, but maybe a different shade of blue. Well, personally I like it green actually. We're going to go with that. And then sampling or scale mode. Well, we'll make an adjustment. 1 second. Okay, so now we have it, and boom. Now it's green, and now it displays only 1 decimal place, 1 digit after the decimal place. And now I want to change the limits, because you'll notice that it's going from positive 100, or it shows it's a little bit more than positive 100. But it shows all the way to 100, so maybe 120 degrees, and then negative 180 degrees perhaps. I don't like that asymmetry. That's because right now it's auto scaling, and personally I don't like it, so I'm going to change that as well. We're going to change the scaling or scale mode to manual, and we're going to go negative 150, and we're going to go positive 100. Oh, sorry, not 100, 150. And that altered our graph a little bit, but I like it much better. And sometimes I do have to force manual scaling on certain things because it's beneficial to the way that it's plotting. So let's look around again. What else can we fix? Boom, steered angle right here. That's broken. Same thing. It's the same way to fix it. We're going to go to let me go ahead and show you again. I click it here, I right click properties. So this is the properties on this little display here. You assign it a channel. It says steered angle unavailable. We know it's unavailable. So which one do we want to pick? We want to pick the first one. You'll notice that SolidWorks, or not SolidWorks, MoTec remembered my last search. So when I went to, okay, I wanted to put a new channel there. I press here. It's still showing the STEE, which I typed originally. That's perfect. I don't have to type it again. Boom. Now we put steering wheel angle. We're happy with that. And it's going to carry over the scaling that I had before. I can manipulate the scaling. Right now it's reading the scaling off of the channel itself, but I can force a new scaling just for this little display here. And we can change colors and we can play around with it, but I'm not going. So now we have that working. And you basically have to go around like that. All these little things, these little widgets come from different options that we have to create these. And you can just go around fixing them just like I did. And it's going to be a little bit of work, but it'll be worth it. So that's how you fix things. Now here's an important one that I want to take notice of. I came over to the suspension page. It's showing us suspension correctly, suspension movement. Okay, I noticed a couple issues already. Notice that suspension position is being written in units of meters. Therefore, we see these units of 0.02369180. Again, that looks silly. So we're going to go ahead and right click all these bad boys and we're going to change this precision to 1 and we're going to move it over to millimeters. Because I don't know about you, but it's kind of hard to read with accuracy things that are more than 2 decimal places in millimeters. It becomes quite meaningless. So very quickly, look how fast I am. I am changing these 4 channels to millimeters and everything is happy. Millimeter. Boom, fixed. So now we see these are the dampers. These are linear potentiometers that are measuring the extension and compression of the damper. And we call that suspension position. And it is reading them very well. From there, we're going to go to the next page, suspension velocity, and we notice that it doesn't say anything. They're broken, they're unavailable. And we're going to go over here to histogram, and again, they're broken and unavailable. This is something interesting. So if you right click on this suspension histogram and you go to properties, you'll see that it's looking for these channels. And apparently they must not exist because it's broken. Okay. Let's look around. What do we have? So we have various options. We have a transition point, high to low speed. We have a y-axis scaling. Okay. We have a display options, and we have velocity calculations. Notice that this is set to auto, and it's set to these channels. So it's looking for damper position front left, damper position front right, damper position rear left, damper position rear right. And perhaps the reason that it's broken is that they're not there. Well, let's see. Do we have damper position channels? We have suspension position. I'm not sure if we have damper position. There's a way to look. So, channel status shows us issues with channels. Again, the channel damper position. Okay, there's also another way of looking. We have this list of all the channels here. That's another way of looking for damper position and seeing if we have that available. Again, I see suspension position. Boom, I found those right there. And they are in alphabetical order, so looking into, we have damper position. It's true, they exist, but they're not getting any data. Well, they're broken. It doesn't really matter because we have a fully functional suspension position channel. So we're going to fix it. So we go right here. We're going to right click, display velocity calculations, manual settings, and we're going to manually put in suspension positions. So again, I use the search function, suspension position. We're going to put the front left, front right, rear left, rear right. Now we're done. They are in millimeters. Oh, and we have it. We have the histogram working. Let's go over to this page. Suspension damper velocities are now fully functional. So the damper velocity channels are actually a math that's already pre-written into MoTec. It's taking the derivative with respect to time of the suspension position. So again, when you differentiate a position, you get a velocity. So this is the direct derivative of the position. And it's already created a channel. So it's called damper velocity. This is the right way of doing it. And now we can alter the properties. So display properties, I don't like looking at them in bars. I like looking at it at lines. The other thing that I don't like here is the high-low speed boundary. So it's not necessarily an arbitrary thing, but it's generally agreed upon thing that there's a certain damper velocity that we call the transition point between high and low speed, and you can change it. But more often than not, what you'll see is a much higher value than 10, something like 20, 25. But at the end of the day, you can work on it. I don't want to say that it's arbitrary, but it kind of sort of it is. They're damping when it comes to high and low speed. Yes, there's different mechanisms and shims in there that do control the fluid velocity, but at the end of the day, both are tied in together. Whether you make high and low speed adjustments, there's no way to completely isolate the effect of the hydraulic damper. Regardless, if you make a low speed or a high speed adjustment, it's going to have an effect, a net effect that will be affecting the high speed or the low speed performance, independent of which one you adjusted. So they're tied into each other regardless, no matter what you do. And but usually we'll define this as a higher velocity, sometimes around 20, 25, depending also on the type of racing that you're doing. So, and you'll notice that the only thing that that does is that it changes this gray area. So it doesn't do anything. It changes the gray area and also changes the percentages. So it's going to calculate the percentage under the curve, under the gray area, and that's what it displays here, low percent. So it'll change these values, but it'll also change these values because now you're, if you add these all up there, it's going to add up to 100%. So it's dependent on the type of racing that you're doing. It's also depending on, I guess, the dampers themselves. But generally 20, 25 millimeters per second is this velocity that we define to be, and we have chosen to be, the transition point from low speed to high speed damping. So I think we have reached a good stopping point. At this point, I have showed you where you can find MoTec, where you can find the Mu exporter. I have showed you how to go through the download and installation process, and I have walked you through what you're going to expect to see when you have just downloaded a fresh version of MoTec, and the little bit of issues that you're going to run into. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Remember to subscribe, and don't forget that we have some contests when we're going to be reaching 1,400 subscribers, 5,000 and 10,000, where we're going to be raffling off or giving away some stuff for some lucky guys out there. So don't forget about that. Definitely want to subscribe and share if you like the video, and wait for the next one that's going to be coming out. Okay, guys? So until then, I'll see you on the racetrack.